Hello, and welcome again to the 16th session of Combining New Paradigms in Science and Metaphysics to offer an explanation on how it would be possible to create billions of avatars for the players to choose in a computer simulation. There are 12 scripts to choose from, each offering a winning side and a means to reverse the energy resulting in the losing side, similar to how the seasons vary with the amount of sunlight. In this session, the Capricorn script, Saturn, and the number 10 will be discussed. What happens on the shortest day of the year? The next day will get longer. Capricorn celebrates the birth of new forces, the holy atom, consciousness embedded in the element earth. The birth happens in the only available space, the bowels of the earth. The programmer is a cosmic joker. One of its favorite delights is to find unusual places to bring forth this new consciousness, the holy atom. A stable for Jesus, mud for the lotus, and new consciousness within the marrow near the bones are a few examples of these unusual places. Spirit ascends from humble beginnings, the Parsival myth. The environment is a seat of low consciousness until it is touched by the information from the programmer's hard drive. Christmas is the celebration of the birth of Christ consciousness. He was born in a humble condition in a place called Nazareth, the lotus born out of the mud. The Jesus event brought in a new consciousness. The Piscean script was introduced to the players. From right is might in the Aries script, win lows. The sacrifice consciousness, lose win in Pisces. We'll get into this script in our final one. 21 years of age is a time of responsibility, marriage, and career. The toys of adolescence are put away, and now the individual becomes an adult. Being an adult means defining your individuality. No longer are you learning for the sake of learning. Now it is all put to the test in the pursuit of your life's work. No longer are you the reflection of the light of your parents or teachers. Now is the time to break into the darkness, to define your own consciousness. Responsibility means to respond, to be open to whatever the universe throws at you. Pursuit of life work is to climb the mountain of earth. Each step brings a greater view, broader horizons. However, the view may be intoxicating, heady with the heights. Life's work spans time, so it takes a step. Take a view. If not intoxicated, take another step. This is a slow process requiring focusing on the terrain and the view. There is the possibility of missing views. The climber may only be concerned with the path. Sometimes the Capricorn misses the view altogether and wakes up one day intoxicated, stumbles, and falls down the hill. Often the mountaineer is not observed. It is as if she disappears, becoming invisible during the climb, only to appear in full view at the top. Jesus disappeared for many years, only to appear as the Christ. Capricorn 10 is an earth sign. Within earth is matter in solid compact form. It is within earth where other elements are trapped, giving the rich diversity to Gaia. As the earth heats, trapped fire escapes, giving forth light. The outer side of earth at Capricorn time looks dead, but inside life is beaming, impatiently waiting to be liberated. However, if we are too impatient, then we experience earthquakes and volcanoes. Only with patience can this fiery energy emerge, controlled, and in a responsible fashion. Capricorn 10 is a cardinal sign. Cardinality deals with reaching outwards towards the universe. In Capricorn, a native is reaching upwardly into space to find her uniqueness, his unique star. As we have seen, it is a process spanning time. Each step demands a test. There are no shortcuts to attaining spirituality. The test demands successful demonstration of responsibility for the consciousness received. In reaching for the stars, the initiate must sever holdings onto the earth. What keeps the initiated earthbound are addictions to stimuli. This aspirant demonstrates power over an addiction through responsibility. Often this is demonstrated by being in a position of authority where defining the limits must be maintained, e.g. parents. Extreme care must be maintained by the initiate to remain balanced. Often overzealous aspirants feel the need to suppress all comforts and desires as a demonstration of spirituality. Many become monks or fakers in an effort to discard worldly desires. However, suppression of an addiction means one is still slave to it. The initiate must demonstrate power over an addiction by living through that. Capricorn is a feminine sign. Femininity requires receptivity. The key issue is responsibility. She must respond to the microcosm. Each individual has a unique path to follow. At a critical point in their path, she who is responsible must give a new and unique direction to the follower. She must project an image to the child, the consequences if the current path continues to be followed. Capricorn is the opposite to Cancer. Both these signs deal with the support of the microcosm. In Cancer, the support is water to heal the burns of misdirected fire and to help the microcosm to continue on its path. In Capricorn, empowering the microcosm is called for. Those born in Capricorn often find themselves in lonely situations, the loneliness of command. The 10th house calls for responsibility for the energy on the cusp. The subject has had past misuse and addiction to this energy. Recall, the rising sign has power over the 10th house, needing Saturn's protection from a source of this addiction. If fire is rising, then Earth is on this cusp, the midheaven, and is its nature to consume Earth in flames. The personality has its nature to abuse midheaven energy. Water rising instinctively puts out fire, and so forth. This is an instinctual need of humans as the cast of characters that make up the food chain in the animal world. Alchemy occurs when known predators stop destroying the next in the chain. In our case, when water stops putting out fire and fire stops consuming earth, and so forth. Recall, the first house is a persona, a mask, an unconscious projection, and it is the unconscious tendency to abuse the midheaven. There is a guardian at the gate of the midheaven, and his name is Saturn. This protection will govern your use of this energy until you learn responsibility in its use. This may include a 12-step type program with many sacrifices until ... So the first house wants to destroy the midheaven, while the 7th house is destroyed by it. Thus, we have two opposite situations regarding the energy of the 10th house. The choice for many is to project the Mars energy rather than the Venus energy. Get them before they get us. There are the hammers. The opposite provides the nails. Life provides a series of situations where we have the opportunity to go back and forth between 1st and 7th houses to define its relationship to the 10th house. Many go back and forth at the polar extremes and don't make much progress in learning responsibility. If, however, we do not destroy the 10th house when in the masculine mode, nor be consumed by it while in the feminine mode, then we have learned responsibility. There are many examples of transmutation of instincts in nature. Dew is water that incorporates fire to levitate it to the top of the plant so as to nourish it. Without fire, water obeys the law of gravity and seeks the lower spot. Thus dew is alchemical magic that has learned not to consume the fire, but use it for levitation. Thus, the energy on the cusp of the 10th house is necessary to raise the vibration of the personality to higher levels. It is through learning responsibility that the cycles of life become a spiral and not going back and forth between extremes. As we proceed from sunlight towards darkness, we pass from Jupiter to Saturn. Saturn marks the ancient barrier of the solar system. Saturn is one of the most beautiful sights in the night sky. It is not only beautiful from afar, it is also beautiful up close. However, Saturn is referred to as a malefic, the bad guy, the shadow. It deals with limitations and fear, yet it is so beautiful. Saturn represents the shadow or the inside to all planets described so far. Venus deals with attraction to objects outside of self, while Saturn deals with self-examination. Venus is beautiful far away but ugly close, while Saturn is beautiful both close and far away. Venus deals with polarity by hiding its shadow, while Saturn is the shadow and will work towards bringing it into the light. Saturn deals with self-observation, and the placement in the chart indicates the weakest spot for self-examination. It marks the spot where you are most unconscious and therefore archetypal and predictable. It is the area most clouded in the structure. Visualize Saturn's ring acting as a barrier to our individuality. It projects the individual from being dissolved in the collective. Wherever Saturn is located in the chart, there is an issue regarding the state of that ring barrier, too thick or too thin. If the ring structure is too thick, no light can penetrate. It is the point where you would be most dull and lead-like. There is fire, but it is prevented from being observed. Desires that would be expressed in this house would feel frustrated and would tend to give up and try to manipulate others to fill the gap, creating a need. Since free will is the license to take the easy way out, most would seek other areas to expand while hiding this area in a dark closet. After a while, it becomes a wooden leg if not addressed. The individual will be somewhat just starting to long climb, pushing the rock up the hill. There could be many episodes of backsliding and losing the ball altogether and having to start again and again. The individual may be at the point where he has learned many valuable lessons at great sacrifice and gaining some momentum going up the hill, but there is never a top to the hill. Saturn represents the father figure. The buck stops with him. It is the energy that descends on the child to balance the unconditional nurturer. He is the bad guy that ruthlessly tears the child from the womb and sets it on its path. It is the face of God who threw Adam and Eve out of the garden of innocence and into the world of duality. Saturn's presence is there to end our innocence regarding issues of that particular house. Individuals with thick Saturn rings experience heavy father figures. The father heavenly structured the child with what the parents thought the child should be. The child's structure may prevent Jupiter's expansion and no vertical ascent. It's like a high school graduate that can't go to college or travel because of family reasons. Years later, he still has the same high school mentality. Saturn works on breaking the structures by making him feel the limitations. He will have small areas where he can shine and a shadow personality. As he gets older, Saturn's barriers will get heavier and heavier until he is crushed into the ground or he breaks free. The other extreme is the individual with a barrier that is too thin. Saturn's position in a chart indicates the weak point. There would be little resistance to the expansive forces of Jupiter, causing a rip in the barrier and a crumbling of the personality. The spoiled child fits this description. This individual can only depend on the nurturer to bail him out. This individual will experience Jupiter's expansion by going to college and flunking out the first semester. The personality would crumble under any kind of expanding situation. Saturn uses fear with this individual. This individual, after hitting rock bottom, will have so much fear that it will kill him or get help like AA or some other kind of 12-step program. Again, the long climb with many setbacks and the everlasting fear that you are one. ... A drug, choose a drug, away from going to the depths of hell. So fear will be a constant companion. Get used to it. Saturn is the shadow. He controls the switch, reversing the polarity, converts the yang into the yin's grip. He works through the subconscious according to the law of opposites, the law of karma. What you sow shall you reap is another way of stating the law of opposites. He is the shadow of the sun. Wherever the sun shines, it always casts a shadow. A person hooked into the yang world of winning would look at Saturn as the great malefic, as Saturn would bring its consequences from always winning. So our solar force would strive to avoid Saturn at all costs. Saturn reflects the shadow of the moon. It is the father forces that snatches the child out of her arms. The relationship between Moon and Saturn would indicate whether the child got enough nurturing so as to grow. Sudden loss of nurturing can shock the individual that spills out into inability to acquire social skills or intellectuality. Saturn is the shadow of Mercury and the intellect, regarding input, assimilate, and communicate. Hard aspects to Saturn would create a barrier to one of these areas, leading to a loss of intellectual capabilities. Saturn is the father that locks the daughter in the convent so as to protect her from the evils of Mars and masculinity. This is the relationship of the Venus-Saturn pair. Barriers to relating may occur, creating aloneness or loneliness depending on the person's consciousness. It can work both ways. He may be swamped in the sea of relationships, that she loses self-identity. So this can go all the way to lonely introvert. Saturn is the opposite principle to Jupiter. Jupiter wants us to expand, violating statistical laws because we have faith to overcome. Saturn says no to further receiving gifts and starts to give it back. The student becomes the teacher. The law of the universe states that we can have everything we want as long as we, in turn, pass it on. By doing so, the laws of opposites will be satisfied. The issue between Jupiter and Saturn will define that region between giving and receiving. Ultimately, Saturn deals with breaking addictions. Again, an addiction takes away free choice in favor of obtaining the drug. Saturn will strive to put us in situations where we must choose the opposite. In situations where we always choose one side, Saturn will work as a malefic in such a way for us to start choosing the opposite. All addictions need to be examined. The alcoholic, before he can be admitted into Alcoholics Anonymous, must proclaim to the universe that he is addicted. This is what Saturn forces us to do, to face our addictions and admit that it has power over us. Saturn works like AA. It forces us to admit our addiction, and just like AA, to admit that we are one drink from drowning in alcohol. We must avoid alcohol for a period of time. Saturn marks the time it takes to dry out from our addictions. Saturn marks the time that we have a grace time with a drug without it becoming addicted. There comes a time when the potential addict is asked the question, for whom does the drug serve? If the answer is for pleasure, then the drug will become addictive. Aspects of Saturn gives clues to the consistency of the layer, the barrier. Flowing aspects indicates that energy will flow through, while stressful aspects indicate problems and time and effort needed. Saturn is an alchemical transmuting agent. By manipulating time and space, it forces us to look at reflections of ourselves that we would rather not do. They are not evil impressions, they just need light. It is through the energy of Saturn that gray, lifeless substance is transmitted into gold and consciousness. It is through the light of our consciousness, through simple observations, that makes this transmutation. It strives to make us see our shadow in its entirety. Only those who are free of their ego can truly see their shadow. Therefore, Saturn's forces will in one way or another work towards bringing us to that point. How much we resist letting go of ego will determine how much Saturn needs to work and also how much pain we have to endure. The statement for this grip is, I am Saturn. I am in control. The Capricorn is serious. His goal is to become conscious. The approach is to be free of lower world emotions. The Capricorn strive to be free of any addictions of the lower world, the reward being consciousness. Thus, by repressing lower world desires and maintaining control, it is possible to someday become king of the mountain. Capricorn represents the father myth as illustrated in Cronus, who led the Titans against his father Uranus and castrating him. Again, the symbolism of castration means that a dimension is removed. In the case of Uranus, the masculine side is removed, meaning that the vibrations of this planetary energy can only be received within the feminine mind. Cronus was impatient, couldn't wait for the proper time to ascend into the position of authority and power, and had Uranus removed. This resulted in the fall of man and the start of patriarchal control of the feminine. Uranus reminded Cronus of the law of karma and foretold that the same thing would happen to him. Therefore, he was afraid of his children and ate them in the hopes of preventing the prophecy. There are many myths dealing with the dynamics between father and his son. Father that can't give up the throne will eat his son, converting him with a layer of lead so as to remain a satellite. Thus Saturn strives to stamp out rebels as they strive to tear down the father and his arena. He knows deep down that one day they will rise up and castrate him in much the same way as the son takes over the family business, kicking the old man upstairs. Saturn's son, Jupiter, with his fire rose up and defeated him. Capricorn is the birth of the holy Adam. It is born in a hidden place in deep matter with a protective shell. Time is needed to remain in the shell until it is released into nature so as to catalyze its surroundings with the message to be like him. Join the crusade. The holy Adam starts his initiation of becoming a father in a deep hole where he must move a rock up and up and up to the destination on top of the mountain. It is a long pursuit with many setbacks, during which he is always in the shadows. What keeps him going is the desire that one day he will be king, as is his destiny. The path has many pitfalls. He must be careful of his steps, especially when the elevation gets high. He must be mindful of the vibrations of Uranus, who constantly whispers shortcuts in his ears. When he acts on one, it usually leads to disastrous consequences. When he strays from the path, he misses opportunities of consciousness at that level. skipping opportunities for consciousness leads to intoxication and eventually falling back down. Capricorn rising has Taurus on the cusp of the fifth house and is the gift of this grip. This is the gift of renewal of the other side. There are myths telling where the father dies and is reincarnated into the younger body and keeps ruling. The reward for rigidity and repression is the fountain of youth. The Capricorn looks old when he is young and young when he is old. Thus, through climbing that mountain and developing consciousness, he gains freedom and a return to innocence. This is enlightenment. There are many religions where innocence and freedom from duality is the pie in the sky. Mohammedanism and fundamental Christianity are religions with a strong Capricorn message. They strive to deny earth's pleasures for pleasures in heaven. Capricorn gives up the present for the future. For example, he would work day and night to get through college so as to have a better future. Capricorn deals with the drying out period and giving up addictions. The 12-step program is the essence of Capricorn. Often the Capricorn on this path up the mountain will strive to have a boring reality with no chance of any addictions. These are the ones that choose to live in a cluster so as to avoid the temptations of the world. This leads to repressing desires, which often comes later on the path with disastrous results. The synthesis is Pisces on the cusp of the third house. What the Capricorn learns from the experience is Pisces and a dream of what the future would be like when he has climbed a mountain. Only through repressing the now can these visions be focused. The Capricorn may develop a Messiah complex where he thinks he and the Father are one. The Capricorn has Cancer in the 7th house and is the energy projected out. He is the father and the bad cop. To play with him, you must be the mother and be the good cop. The Capricorn defines the limits and sits at the head of the table. The Cancer and the unconditional nurturer coaches the child to keep on his path. The Capricorn says, no, turn around, you are going the wrong way. The Capricorn gives no freedom. I want you to be straight and narrow. The Capricorn is obsessed with end results and not the quest. Interestingly, even in the quest to be free of duality, there is duality. The duality is giving up or not giving it back. These are the subtleties of the ego. The father is the rigid bureaucrat, no exceptions, and everything must go by the book. This is the authoritarian figure who becomes the workaholic so as to become king of the mountain. His goal is to be the head of the advisory board of all human conduct so that he can judge who broke the rules and who didn't. This satisfies his Messiah complex. He projects out Cancer on the cusp of the 7th house, the den mother. She becomes the nurturer, the good cop. In this role, she finds herself always saying yes, sometimes even against common sense. Again, Saturn will strive to bring the Capricorn to choose choicelessness between being the father or the mother, letting the situation determine which role to play. Capricorn rising has Libra on the midheaven and the energy needing protection by Saturn. It is through the energy of Libra that Saturn gives balance between the two extremes. Libra can be controlled by Capricorn and the father. He can put her in a comet to keep her on the straight and narrow. The father has that much control over his daughter. The Capricorn is a responder. He responds to someone's action as a father with his child. Saturn must become the daughter and use Venus energy to tempt him into an act which goes against his prime principles. This starts the yin cycle. The father is a disciplinarian, and areas where he is the most rigid are sites for temptation. Aries, on the cusp of the fourth house, is the energy needed when he enters the yin portion. Aries deals with spontaneous actions, while Capricorn is delayed consciousness. When the Capricorn is in need, he loses spontaneous consciousness, allowing the appearance of the beast within. This script deals with the conflict between Capricorn and Aries, father and the son. The father can overwhelm the son at early age and shock him into becoming a stooge with passive aggression tendencies. The father could be a stooge and the child castrates him at an early age. The issue is that time is on the side of the child. The gift to the yin portion of the Capricorn script is Leo on the cusp of the 8th house. This is the power of the Leo myth, which will be used against him. Thus, desire and will work against the Capricorn to crush the structures. It is the light of Leo which exposes his darkness, bringing him to his knees. Leo brings on passion which the Capricorn cannot control when he is in the yin portion. We see these often in repressed individuals who becomes obsessed in the campaign leading to their destruction. Germany, a Capricorn country with repressed desires, was kidnapped by pride that led them to the Great Fall. What the Capricorn loses is Aquarius, which is on the cusp of the 2nd house and valued the most. Aquarius deals with detachment from earthly desires, and when lost, leads to inability to detach from the worldly temptation. When he loses Aquarius, he becomes intoxicated with earthly passions. The synthesis of the yin portion is Gemini in the cusp of the 6th house. What he draws as a result of his passion is the turning on of the lower mind with shatter. The square between Capricorn and Aries defines this script. The issue is consciousness, which brings over time between the father and the son. The father, in his illusion, thinks he is superior and there are no peers. To maintain this facade, he must repress lower mind desires. These desires can be acted out in behaviors of his children, leading to repressed feelings surfacing. The placement of Saturn is the key to the Capricorn script. Aspects to other planets will determine how well he responds to that energy. Thus, the Capricorn represses worldly goods while slowly climbing the mountain towards a goal. For his efforts, he is given eternal youth and a return to innocence. In his quest to be the most conscious, he may develop a Messiah complex that he and the Father are one. He is tempted by a stimulus that brings out repressed desires. These desires have a mind of their own, and it works against him to bring him down and a loss of freedom from his lower mental desires. This leads to a fall from the higher elevation back to the lower world, where he has to climb back up the mountain. A final footnote regarding Capricorn is his number and its reduction. 10. 1 plus 0 equals 1. The father to the son. Okay, another chemical break. Neon 10, the third daughter, the inert gases complete the second row of 8 members. She is the rest note in the cosmic song that the chemical elements play. Except for her presence in the plastic state, she is no other use. She is waiting eternally for the holy seed. The number 10 is form of a phallic in a circle. It is both masculine and feminine, or father and mother principles. This number responds to whatever karmic reactions they experience in life. The goal is to make every relationship a win-win. Their word is power and their presence peace. Number 10 signifies purification. The Wheel of Fortune, which is the 10 tarot card, offers the spot where you start. The wheel deals with the time between start and stop, waiting for an outcome. The number 10 is the higher octave of the number 1, empowering the qualities of the 1. The Wheel of Fortune refers to the fact that things tend to go in cycles. There are good times and there are bad times. This too shall change. Moving on to the final member of the carbon-6 family, we get to lead, 82. The ancients assigned the planetary energy of Saturn to symbolize its chemical element. Saturn defines the limit of the sun, or solar system. Lead is the last stable element. It is dark and gloomy, but surprisingly gives an entirely different input for feel. It is warm and soft. There is a whole series of lead hours which bright colors betray in the fire within. Lead unites two very strong contrasting forces, rigid heaviness and reviving inner fire. Lead is unexcited chemically and doesn't deal with water in its salts. They are all colorless. This metal serves as a shield against chemical sharks and deadly radiation. Lead has an inner fire and is shaped thinly can ignite. It is soft, brittle, and is dead last on the table of metals. Lead builds bones, involving the death processes of mineralization. This is death to the microcosm, and the residue becomes the form for the macrocosm, so as to support the body and fight gravity. Lead, being the end, also serves as a shield protecting us from rotting corpses out there in the land of the living dead, the radioactive elements. At this point, is there a way that time can be reversed to retain the sun in eternal youth for the elixir of life, as taught by the ancient alchemists? The teachings are of a mysterious person appearing to a seeker, giving him a sample of mysterious substance with instructions to add it to lead in an airtight crucible and heat to the molten state. The seeker soon learns that for him to attain this substance, he must experience the initiation of fire. This is the pressure cooker of life, sustaining the heat of passion without emotional expression. Was all this stuff just psychological or philosophical illusions? Not so, say new inventors. It has been found that silver salts heated in a crucible with lead will produce a mixture of gold and other precious metals. The yields are not very high for commercial processing, but it offers the possibility that all the precious metals can be commercially prepared from base metals, and we no longer need to rape our great mother. Now that we have introduced all 7 base metals, we can determine which metal has the greatest metallic character. The winner, moon, and silver. Note that their metal perfection directly correlates with the corresponding planet's rotational speed. Gold is the mediator between the extremes of one plane. Mercury, copper, and silver is geared to high and marrying and feminine pole, while the opposite pole leads toward fire, the lower masculine pole. In this section, the planetary energy of Saturn was introduced, along with the number 10 and the Capricorn script. Saturn deals with the agent that reverses the polarity of the planetary energy and converts the yang to the yin portion of the script. It is the cops who punishes when the other energies become a source of an addiction. Saturn deals with all barriers, the cell, that protects substances from outside influence. It is the double layer that surrounds the structures. In the next session, mystery abounds with the number 11, the Uranus and the Aquarius grip. Until then, be happy.